Welcome to the Rich Relationship Podcast with Gil
and Renee, where amazing things happen. Our goal is to help build, repair, and restore healthy relationships.
Our primary focus is on the marriage relationship. However, the topics are applicable to the relationships that we value most. Remember, we're stronger together.
Let's grow.
Rich Relationships, Episode 3, Uncommunicated Expectations, Hope versus Expectation.
Right, that's the topic in the title. Yes.
Right. You know, this is my most exciting part of the day, actually. Me
too.
I've been thinking about this all day, that we actually get to come in here and record and share.
And where?
In our studio.
In the closet?
Yeah, in the closet.
Yeah, we in the closet.
But I was thinking about it all day today, and it was excitement, but also like, when do we got to do this? We got to do this. You know, we've had some things and some activities happening this week that when it seems like when busy times come, that's when
you have to make time
for
absolutely.
Love. Yeah, that, and also
and this is
the
something
things
that we
are
love.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I was thinking about this week, and the uncommunicated expectations is what we were kind of talking about. Some things came to my mind as I look back at our relationships, I actually realized how clueless I really was.
I could say I was clueless too.
As far as moving forward, specifically to some of the preconceived ideas I had in my mind as a single individual before we got married. I was thinking about when we got together, we had dated for 3 years, really, before we even started. Well, I think it was a serious relationship, but we had been dating 3 years before we even contemplated marriage. We didn't know we were going to go that route. We had started talking about it, but 3 years in, and I think about how many conversations we had
about marriage. So this is episode 3, Hope versus Expectation.
Right.
And the actual topic is expectations, uncommunicated expectations.
Right. And the reason why I brought that up was because when you think about how much conversation we actually had, even in our dating times, we talked about a lot of stuff.
Most things that most people don't talk about, we talked about. We talked about our likes and our dislikes, our hopes, our dreams, our failures, what we thought marriage was going to look like. I remember you talked about, yep, I'm going to buy you a Volvo and I'm going to send you flowers every day, and just all these things that we talked about and that we kind of share with one another in the beginning of our relationship, long before you, because really you didn't really propose. We just kind of agreed that we were going to get married.
That's another topic. We'll get into that.
We're going
to get into that in another episode. But
we did. We really shared a lot, and I think that's what makes any relationship strong, is friendship and making sure that you talk about the things that most people just ignore. As Andy Stanley says, pay attention to the tension. Right.
And so I thought about also that we all had, even like you said, about all the things we talked about, all these things, whether it was me telling you I'm going to get you a Volvo and flowers and all these things, these are all the preconceived ideas that I had that I started talking about. But we also had baggage, and I don't necessarily mean baggage in a negative sense. Baggage that I'm talking about is also dreams and goals and aspirations. That's all things that we hold close to our hearts that we're going to take into the relationship. And that's what we're going to talk about on this episode of Rich Relationships, Hopes versus Expectations. Cap.
Episode 3, 1, 2, 3. Was it as easy as 1, 2, 3? Oh no, it was not. But it has been such an amazing journey of learning and discovering and really finding out what life is really all about. The first episode, we talked about our love story and how we met.
Right.
Episode 2 was actually about understanding how pi could destroy your relationships. And we weren't talking about peach pie. We're talking about PIEA,
So if you
which
want to
is
know
an
what,
acronym.
right?
You have to go and listen to the other
Yep.
episode.
We want you. That's what I was getting ready to say. Go
Yes,
listen to that
go and listen to
episode
the
2
other
if you want to
episode.
know what pie is all about. But it's all about listening.
And episode 3 is about hope versus expectation. And if it seems like we're kind of going in a direction you probably don't understand where we're going, we want to help to disarm the barriers to healthy relationships. And it's better to help people to kind of, I were talking about it, the importance of shaking the rug. Most of us put things under the rug. We don't want that. We want to deal with all that stuff up front. Gil kind of mentioned about baggage. What do we bring into the relationship? Because really, when you get married, it's not just you and your spouse standing there. It's your past, it's your hopes, it's your dreams, it's your family. So when you're marrying someone, you're marrying things that you may not realize that you're marrying. And so like you talked about, we talked about everything. Who are our favorite aunts and uncles, and what was our favorite food and our favorite all those things were things we talked about. And I think that that's what has really given us such a good foundation, because we probably didn't go into it, and we all have, there's a big difference between hope and expectation. And I'll kind of go into that, but I'll let Gil kind of share some of the things he wants to talk about uncommunicated expectations.
Right, but we also talked about, we wanted to thank everybody for listening, and we've been seeing the numbers go up gradually, and we know this is a journey. It's not about the numbers, but we know people are out there listening. And Renee says something that is really, really, I think, relevant when you said some people suffer in silence, and they won't go to a professional counselor.
No, they won't.
Excuse me, or they won't go to somebody, whether it's in their church or somebody, a confidant that they have. And hopefully you have found this podcast something that you can take in and digest. Yeah, a safe place in a community that we are building, that you can listen to some things and hopefully help you on the journey of your relationships, whether it's a spousal relationship or one with your significant other that you're not gotten to marriage yet.
Right.
But
or your family.
Right.
Family relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. That you're laying down ground, a good foundation that you were talking about, or some of the things that maybe have to undo and unlearn.
Yeah, because I think it's so important that we always did premarital. We are certified with
couples, right.
Preparing and Rich.
Yeah.
And so we've already did premarital. I think that there should be, so you think you want to get married. I don't think that you should wait until you've set a date to do premarital. I think that you should do that when you're thinking about it. And so these are some of the things that you can kind of get prepared in your mind and in your heart to help you be better equipped to go into your relationship that's supposed to be forever without taking things that could really make your relationship end a lot shorter.
Sure. We mentioned earlier that we all have baggage, and that talks about our dreams and our aspirations and goals, not necessarily negative baggage. And I see you cringe.
Because I don't think of those as baggage.
No, I'm not calling it baggage in the sense, and you'll see where I'm going with it. I'm not calling it baggage as in something negative. I'm just saying baggage think of it as a container of something that you are holding.
Luggage.
Okay, you can call it luggage.
We can call that luggage, and we'll call the negative things baggage, because when I think of baggage, I think of something that you want to, that weighs you down.
Okay, whether it's a bag or a box.
Yeah.
You want to put it in a box? Okay, you can put your
We'll
box.
call it luggage, because you have like the cheap stuff you get from Walmart, and then you have like Louis Vuitton, like really nice. So let's call it luggage versus baggage.
So we talk about dreams, goals, and desires. We all have them coming in. And one of the things that I read even during this week, and some of the information that I was just kind of researching and comparing it even in our own lives, what do you think is the big 3? I call them the big 3. This list is not all inclusive, but there are 3 things that tends to be a problem when it comes to expectations, uncommunicated expectations. And I'll give you the first one. Let's see if you can follow along with it. The first one is money.
Oh, well, I would say that it would probably be family.
Okay, that's one. But that's not one of the big 3.
Money, sex, communication.
Ding, 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 ding. Absolutely. Research has shown those are the 3 biggest areas that people have uncommunicated expectations in. And when you talk about it and when you think about it, that list is not all inclusive. And some of the other things you mentioned, one of them was family. Those are those family traditions.
And let's use an example of why that could be an issue. Because if you were raised in a family where you had dinner every night.
I was just going to say Sunday dinner.
Yeah. I mean, there are things that we grow up doing that when we go into other relationships, we expect for people to do it like we did it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that could become a major issue if it's not talked about.
Sure.
Because we were watching a show and he grew up going to Sunday dinner every single Sunday, and that's something that he wanted for his family. But he was dating someone who was totally different.
Right, and she kind of looked at him like,
we don't do that.
That's what you do.
Right.
That's something that's very new and unique to me. You know, another one is chores. When you
roles and responsibilities.
Roles and responsibility. We're going to talk about that. How about uncommunicated expectations as it relates to friends?
That can always be a big issue because let's before we even go any further, let's define the difference between hope and expectation.
Okay, go ahead.
And for me, that's what I have just been really meditating on. You know, we are believers. We believe the Word of God. I look at, there are 37 different scriptures that talk about expectation. And when I really began to really kind of really focus on this, the thing that I really came to realize was that hope is the currency of the kingdom. And expectation is the currency of humanity.
Okay.
We spend our lives expecting that people are going to do things the way we do it, expecting that they're going to give us what we give them back. But I can say today, I would believe that if we live our life with expectation, we will always be disappointed and frustrated because expectation is driven by a sense of I'm entitled to this.
Oh yeah, we definitely going to talk about that part. Yeah.
And hope is a result of this is a gift and I really didn't have to get it. And so if we would begin just by changing our mindset, by approaching relationships from the mindset of hope and not expectation, because I always say I expect nothing and I hope for everything.
Right. And one of the things that, as you said that, and I was listening to you, it's almost like you go into any relationship with these expectations and some of them that you may have talked about, but some of them you have not talked about.
And some of them you don't even know that you have them.
Oh, absolutely. And then one of the things that I wrote down here was when it comes to expectations is to release those that I'm in relationship with from expectations. Mm-hmm. Just like what you were just describing, if I release those I'm in relationship with and that I love and care about, especially with like yourself, if I release you from expectations that I may have, you know, we've been together for a while, and I release you from those, then you said it already about that humanity side of not being disappointed. You know, obviously nobody goes into their relationships looking for disappointment, but it's going to happen.
But you should.
Right.
I think that you should go. One of the things I was taught by Claudette Copeland was that in this relationship, I'm going to hurt you and you're going to hurt me. And it's not intentional. Mm-hmm. It's because we're human. And that was one of the things that was so liberating for me because I realized when you have childhood of origin issues and there are things you weren't taught and things you didn't know, you're going to every relationship expecting someone to be in your heart what only God can be. You know, I think about when we were younger, when we first got married, I remember seeing some friends, and one of our friends, he asked me, he said, so you married now, so are you complete?
He's just getting started.
I said, excuse me? I said, I didn't get married for a person to complete me.
Right.
Because a person can't. And if we
so
go
are you saying I can't complete you?
No, baby. Only you.
Oh, okay.
Only God.
I'm just joking. I'm joking. I'm joking.
No, but I think unfortunately so many women think, well, if I get married, I'll be happy. Or men, well, if I get a wife, I'll be complete. That's not the role of another human being. How could someone who has a source become your source?
Right.
And so when you think about hope and expectation, it's so important that we approach relationships from the perspective that whatever I get is a gift. I'm not entitled to any. And actually, God doesn't owe us anything. No one owes us anything. Right. We owe it to ourselves to do our best and to give everything 100%. But we can't then expect that same thing from other people.
No, absolutely not. You know, what impacts what we put into that box or luggage, or as you call it, the baggage that we have, is what we've seen and what we've heard. Our experiences that we experienced growing up, you know, that is where I think the origin of it, where it really starts. You know, whether you watch something on television when you were younger. I didn't grow up in the normal family structure, you know, mom and dad living at home together and dad coming home in the evenings and things like that. I got divorced early. So that wasn't my normal.
Right.
So you had to compensate for those things that you didn't have in getting it from other sources, you know, where mine, I was a TV junkie. So
Yeah,
I got a lot
too.
of it from television, and I would see things on TV and I say, man, that's what I want. So, you know what, that even at a young age, I would take that and put it in my box and put it in my bag or luggage, or however you wanted to, what container you want to call it. I would hold that in. So guess what? When years and years later, when I meet Renee, guess what? I'm going to pull that thing out, or have that expectation that she's going to do what I see, or that I have learned from, or have wanted or desired, or all those things. And if I put that on you, that's unfair to you.
It is.
You know, and just like you said it already, you're not going to meet it.
No. And you know, you think about that, just use what you just said. We have all these things we put into our heart that accumulate. So just imagine, we got married at 21. So you probably had a whole lot less in your heart than you would have in your heart right now.
Sure.
And so these are the things we need to really be mindful of when we get married at 21 versus 50, or if we've been married multiple times. We need the time to, I did one of the classes, one of my first Highlands talk I did was about unpacking, unpacking ourselves, unpacking our heart. That's a part of our description for rich relationships, because we realize that if we don't take the time to really ask ourselves, who hurt you, who told you that, and how do you make people feel, you're going to be you're either going to be, people either energize you or drain you. And when we don't take the time to really get to know where the source of our hurt and our information and how we make people feel, if we don't get to the source of those things, we are just a drain.
Right. And one of the things that I also learned from another source, we talked about this in the first episode or so, how there's so many awesome teachers and things like that out there. And one of the things that I learned from Andy Stanley was, and this is and I even wrote it down, and I had it even in my journal, and it says, what we try to do in situations like this is we want to either reflect something, or we want to, not reflect, we want to emulate, or we want to imitate those things that we've seen, you know, from earlier in parts of our lives, you know. And when we try to graft that into my life, it may not come out the same way, you know, and more than likely it's not, because you're looking at a scripted or something that people have wrote it, and it's going to be a perfect story.
It's been edited, and it's been reproduced, and it's been made perfect, and life just isn't like that. Because you have, you know, pain and hurt, and all of those things can take any beautiful photo and make it a little bit distorted.
Right. And if you don't deal with those things, the one common denominator you're going to take with you out of that baggage container, box, or luggage is you. If you don't deal with those things, the next relationship you're going to pick up and go to, you're going to take it right along with you.
And, you know, when I think about some examples of hope versus expectation, I think about a situation where someone that was really close to me, they got sick, and I went there to be there with them. And we were just talking, and we were talking about someone else who was not there for them during that time.
Someone who should have been.
But see, that's the expectation.
Right.
So when we do things, and I think I had gotten to a place in my life, I don't do things to get somebody to do it back for me.
Right.
I do it because it's in my heart to do it. And when you do things without expecting to get something back, it is so liberating.
Sure.
You can say no and yes, and it not be about the other person. It could be about you being honest with yourself. And so what I reflected back to her was, so you did it for that person to do something for you? No. Yes, you did. Because if we do something and then we expect for someone to do something, I give an example of today. I realized that my sister and I have totally different standards about everything. And I told her, I said, you know what? I apologized because I am expecting what's important to me to be important to you.
Right.
And that's wrong.
Right.
You know, I apologize,
Sure.
you know. And so I think that the more we learn about what biblical principles are, because all these things we're talking about, although we may not give you a scripture and a verse, they're all biblical principles. He is the only source of solutions. Everyone else may take it and repackage in a way where you maybe understand it.
Right.
But it's the only source.
Whether it's a self-help book or a new teaching or anything, there's nothing new under the sun.
Because when I think of James 4, it says, why is there arguing and quarreling amongst you?
Right.
And I think about that in regards to expectations.
Sure.
Because we expect that we're supposed to get something that was never ours. It was never promised. So you don't give to get.
And you said something about that relationship. That sounded like what I call a transactional relationship, is where you actually exchange or take turns. I did this for you, now you do this for me. And that can be a big problem when you think about a relationship that you're in, whether it's a husband and wife and those types of things. If you have a transactional relationship, it's almost like you're taking turns and you both are losing.
You are.
You know, you're losing in the sense that, yeah, you got what you want at this time. And what happens when the person don't want to deliver when it's their turn? That's going to build up resentment. That's going to build up animosity and some negative things that if you don't properly deal with them or address them.
Or be aware of them. Because I think so many times we do things and we really never discover our why.
Right.
You know, one of the things that Gil and I, we jokingly say that we try to outserve each other. And I think to me that has been one of the greatest gifts to our relationship, because it's not tit for tat. There is no such thing as 50-50.
Right.
I'm 100% and you're 100%.
Yeah.
You bring 100, I bring 100. You might bring 90, I might bring 80. But it's never 50-50, because that goes back to I'm not a whole person.
Right.
You know, and so I love these conversations that really make us begin to stop and think and reflect on, what do I bring to the relationship? Am I bringing hope? Am I bringing expectation? Am I bringing a breath of fresh air, or am I sucking all the air out of the room?
Right.
Because if we don't begin to do that in relationships, we really make it really hard for relationships to, as we say, let's grow. Right. And so to me, I would really put this episode under repairing your mindset about because if I had to say what I would believe about expectation, I would have to say the expectation is the silent killer of relationships. Because again, like you're talking about, it's uncommunicated. We don't talk about it. We don't say anything about it. And so if you just start, your call to action would be, the next time you're in a situation where you're going to another person about something you want or need, are you going with hope or an expectation?
You know, as we're talking about uncommunicated expectations, hope versus expectations, and we had some good wisdom, got knowledge, and got questions that we had that happened this past week after a friend of ours listened to the episode 2 of the podcast. And what did he say?
Warren Riley shared the importance of couples coming into their relationship naked and unashamed. And I thought that was so beautiful. He used Genesis as the example,
right,
that Adam and Eve were in the garden and they were naked and they were not ashamed.
Right, and that's definitely wisdom when you think about it from the standpoint of when you can go into your relationship with that kind of vulnerability and being totally open. That's nothing but going to have positive input into your life and into your relationship later, you know, especially if you feel safe enough to have that level of vulnerability and exposure about some things.
And I would say that if you don't have that, wait until you do.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you don't get more vulnerable as you get married if you don't start off that way. My godmother used to always say, start it off the way you want it to be. Don't start doing things you don't want to continue doing. And if you can't be open and honest and transparent, as Warren said, naked and unashamed, you might want to get some more counsel. Spend some more time getting to know that person. You owe that to yourself.
Absolutely.
So that's our Got Wisdom. We don't have a Got Question. Hey, guys, we need you guys to send your questions.
Sure. So if you got questions, you can send them to go to our website at richrelationshipsus.com, or you can actually send it to our Gmail, which is richrelationships.us@gmail.com.
I love to hear you say that, boy.
See, you didn't think I was going to get it right. And
that
that ain't from no notes either.
That's in your heart. Go ahead, Gil Beavers.
In this episode, we're talking about uncommunicated expectations. There's some things that happen when you have someone that is leveraging their uncommunicated expectations on you.
Or holding you hostage, you mean?
Well, I wouldn't call it necessarily holding you hostage. I think there's some behaviors that you see happen, when somebody is starting, or not starting, but have put uncommunicated expectations on you, and you are going to respond regardless of whether you know it consciously or unconsciously.
And it may not be intentional.
Right. And I wrote these down because I wanted to really have some detail to them. And it's 4 of them that these are some of the behaviors that you can see. Your first response is you leave the situation. This is where you can't meet that person's expectations. The problem is when you leave, you take your luggage, your baggage, and your dreams and goals and aspirations, and you take them into your next relationship because you have put them on someone without them even knowing it. Mm-hmm. And you, just like you said at the very beginning of this episode, nobody is going to be able to meet those needs.
Nobody but God.
That's not the goal of a relationship where you come into it with these requirements, so to speak.
Or demands.
Yeah, and put them on someone because they're going to fail you. I thought about our relationship when we were very young in our marriage, where I think that was something that you did towards me.
Yes, I did.
You expected me.
I'm so sorry.
Well, it's okay because you expected me to meet some needs, and I can testify that it gets weighty.
It does.
It's a big weight and a big responsibility for someone to put this unnecessary pressure upon you, especially when you're young.
And mine was not uncommunicated. I have never had a problem.
Oh, you defined it all right.
My issue is not uncommunicated expectations. I make sure.
No, you communicate very well.
Yes, I do.
Or at least you tell me what you want very well.
And everybody that knows me knows if you don't have to wonder what I want or what I need. I will tell you.
Yes, ma'am. You will.
I'm just learning how to do it
differently
with grace.
Well, and that's happened over time.
And thinking about, I think about how when we first got married, Gil had this big box of all, because Gil was very, very popular in high school.
I wouldn't say popular. I just knew people. I wasn't. I didn't think I was super popular.
You may not have friends, but you were popular. You didn't have really close friends, but everybody knew you.
Well, okay. I don't think so, but okay.
Well, anyway, you had this big box of all these pictures and letters from all these girls that had sent him all this stuff that he had kept. And I can remember being 21 years old. Gil was a cop in the Air Force, so he did shift work. And I remember sitting and reading all of this stuff in his box.
How did that make you feel? I mean, did you get mad or angry?
I got really mad, but then all of a sudden I found this one pack of letters that were like so well cared for.
What letters were those?
Those were letters you had written to me.
Ooh, there it is.
And then I realized, oh my goodness, this boy really, really, for real, really loves me. And
just because I had some letters?
It was what the letters said.
Oh, okay.
I got to hear your thoughts. And because you were really quiet for a long time. Aaron always jokes and says, my daddy was quiet the first 10 years of my life. And for those of you who know him, you know that is for real. And so when I read his thoughts and I realized, man, because I always thought I was more into him than he was into me. But when I read these letters, I got to hear his thoughts. And that shifted my view of my value towards him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's important to write things down and keep journals. And he gave me permission. I wasn't sneaking through his stuff. We didn't do that.
He was open.
Yeah, he was open. He didn't have anything to hide.
Like Warren said, naked.
Naked and unashamed.
That's it.
But I think that was very pivotal in our relationship because it gave me the ability to see myself through your eyes.
Right. And we hadn't even been married 2 years yet at that time.
And we were so young. And I was so insecure, oh my gosh, and jealous.
That's a major expectation.
And possessive. And oh my gosh, I was a lot of work.
No,
I'm a lot of work now in a different way.
Those are all the things that you bring into every relationship. Not you, but I'm just saying that's what people are going to bring, some things from their past into those relationships in the future. So we were talking about some of the common things that to identify. So we talked about leaving the situation, but the next one is it's a win type. It's a battle. Mm-hmm. You go into trying to get as much as you can from the person that you're in relationship with, which is not very good. And this is some of the characteristics you go into when you're in a battle for, or you feel like you're in an adversarial type thing. You try to persuade them. When I say that, I'm talking about you tell me what will work for you to get your way, or to get them to accept your way and your expectations, that you're trying to give them expectations and trying to put it upon them. And now you go into persuading, you guilt trip them.
Silent treatment.
You try to control them.
Mm-hmm.
And you try to pressure them.
Right.
You know, there's no real victories for either way. No. You know, when you try those tactics on someone you're supposedly in a relationship with, it shouldn't be an adversarial type behavior that you're displaying when it comes to getting your expectations pressed upon them. That pressure that Renee put on me early in our marriage, that is the same type of thing that people are going to do. They're going to leave. They're going to go into a battle. They give in. So how did you learn to deal with it? I think when I started out, I displayed some of these behaviors. I would isolate myself. Mm-hmm. I didn't leave our whole relationship, but I would, sometimes
present and absent.
Exactly. I would disconnect emotionally. Mm-hmm. I would disconnect and mentally, mm-hmm. Where I would still be physically at home and in the relationship. And one of the things that you're going to lose, and this is something that is very key, you're going to lose intimacy. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking about...
you can have sex without intimacy and intimacy without sex.
And I was just getting ready to say something similar to that. I was getting ready to say, and I'm not talking about sex. I was talking about the intimacy that you have as a husband and wife, to where there feels like there's a barrier set up, or there's something, an obstacle that is in the way. And that was how I coped with, and that's how I dealt with it. When you put those uncommunicated expectations on me, I would leave. And I didn't do so much of the battling type thing, towards you. Right. I think
yours were probably more internal.
Right. And I think this is a third one. I gave in a lot. Mm-hmm. I just gave in a part of myself. And what I thought, this is when you think about somebody who really don't know who they are mm-hmm. as a person. Right. It's easy for them to give up and give in to someone that they're in a love relationship with, because you want the best. Right. Nobody goes into a relationship looking for it to fail. No. Everybody starts a relationship on and wanted to succeed.
But I think that we may want it to succeed without knowing how to make it succeed.
Oh, absolutely. And when I talked about the giving in, that's when I started abandoning who I was. Mm-hmm. You hear sometimes, and we've heard it before, working with some couples, that they start losing themselves mm-hmm. and their spouse. Mm-hmm. That is an indicator that someone has leveraged expectations upon the other person, and the person who is the recipient of those expectations are feeling the pressure. Right. And they're doing some of these behaviors. And if you were, think about it, if you were the person that was putting the expectations on them, and you weren't recognizing the responses that you were getting, sooner or later you keep adding more and more weight and more expectations on this person. They've given in, they've checked out, they have shut down. You're going to see some of those things. And what happened is, they're going to be unhappy in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they may not say anything right away, but that's where I think it comes along to all of a sudden something blows up, or it's the straw that broke the camel
The
back, or
rug,
however
like
you
we're
want.
talking about, all the things that are under the rug that we're going to
Right.
address and deal with.
Sure, and this is temporary. You know, they'll deal with it for a little while, but in a long-term situation, there's going to be some impacts that have to
So
happen.
how did you learn what changed in our relationship? What made things better for you?
The communication first. You know, I think, and I thank God, because we have had communication even before we got to this point where we've been through the trainings and all those types of things, that we talked about a lot of things, and you helped me in that sense, that you helped me sort through some of the emotions that I were feeling and trying to help me communicate it, not speaking for me,
Right.
but helping me understand what I was feeling and to be able to articulate it to you to the point to where it helped me work through it to where it was an exchange.
Right.
You
And
know,
to me,
where,
we always say that a healthy relationship should make you better than where you can be by yourself. There's so many things about your personality that I have learned to appreciate and assimilate, because no one has everything.
no.
The other person should make you better. They should challenge you and encourage you. And they should also give you the freedom to be who you are.
Right. I think one of the things that I wrote down to be in a successful relationship, you got to give it all away.
You do.
I gave all those things. Now, I didn't give up myself and who I was as a person, but I gave it up for you. We say it, we share with couples all the time that I always have your back.
And I always have your back.
And so that means if I'm always looking out for you and you're always looking out for me,
We'll be covered.
We're covered 360.
Right.
We're covered both ways,
Right.
you know. And so I don't even have to think about me.
Right.
And you don't have to think about you, because you know you have someone looking out for you.
And to me, I think that is the epitome of what marriage is. It's selflessness. It's not demanding with expectation that I'm going to marry this person and all my childhood issues are going to go away. Or I'm going to get married and everything I ever wanted is going to just, it's not that. You know, I said it before, marriage is spiritual warfare more so than it is a romantic balcony.
Sure.
I think that if you don't see it as spiritual warfare, then you're going to try to live on a romantic balcony that's going to be very short.
Sure.
Because in order to be intimate, you have to be transparent. You have to be vulnerable. You have to be who you are.
Yeah.
You know, and be honest about that. And so hope versus expectation is a great launching pad for intimacy.
Right.
And for getting closer. It's not a bad thing, you know. And I'm grateful that we can share. We talked about, you know, we're going to always be hot, honest, open, and transparent. Sharing things from our own lives, from our own past, from our own pain, to prevent other people from having to go through the same things that we've had to go through.
And one of the things that you said was one of the things that I learned from it, or took away from the whole expectation of putting them on you, is you don't owe me anything. Mm-hmm. I'm in a relationship because I want to be in a relationship with you. And so therefore I give up. I don't want those transactional type of behaviors or anything like that, to where I said, Renee doesn't owe me anything.
Right. And I think that's so liberating when you realize that it's not the other person's job to make you happy. When you realize that it's a person, a job, a husband, a car, a baby, a house, a position is not the answer.
No, it's not.
It has to be the Lord.
Right. And through that response for me is where you don't owe me anything, but I'm grateful for everything.
And I'm grateful for the gift of our relationship, because I always say I think it's the best thing that ever happened. Jesus and you are the best thing that ever happened.
And I say it this way, being grateful and having gratitude is the catalyst for intimacy. Mm-hmm. If I'm very thankful for you and the things that you do for me, that's going to draw me closer to you. That's going to draw me in to where I want to be more intimate with you and open up, and as Warren said, be naked and unashamed and be hot, honest, open, and transparent to the point where I can bring things to you.
Right.
Not expectations.
Right. But hope.
But hope.
But hope.
That's a good way to put it.
But hope.
So this has been an awesome discussion and a talk that we've had sharing on the Rich Relationship Podcast about uncommunicated expectations.
Hope versus expectations.
Hope versus expectations. And just to recap the things that we've actually talked about during this episode, and I'll just give it to you how I wrote it down because it was really, really important for us to capture this information to me.
Oh, yes.
And
to share it.
Right. Release those that we are in relationship with or we love and we care about from meeting my expectations.
Yes, Lord. That's an adult. That's adulting at the highest level. Because remember I asked my grandparents, what was the meaning of being an adult? My grandfather, of course, said you're an adult when you're 18.
And you're paying your own bills.
Yeah.
And
But my grandmother said you're an adult when you care about somebody else more than yourself. Mm-hmm. And so to me, I think that really... And
we
they
should
had
use that for God wisdom.
Yeah, okay, so that's...
No.
No, that's not the God wisdom. Yeah. Well, Warren, we use God, but there's lots of wisdom. Right. And that's the thing I was grateful for when she said that. When you love somebody, and love is not demanding, it's not puffed up. We know the love verse, but how do we apply that to our life? And so I think that when we live our life using hope as our currency versus writing checks that are going to bounce with expectation, we have much healthier, rich relationships.
Sure. And you also have to ask yourself, am I trying to persuade or guilt trip somebody or kind of trying to control them or put pressures on anyone that I'm in relationship with? These are kind of some of the self-assessment, some of the checks that you can actually do for yourself. Expectation, it creates a lender and a type of debt transactional relation. Our responsibility is to keep your baggage, luggage, box, container of your hopes, dreams, and aspirations, goals from becoming expectations on someone else.
Exactly.
They are your responsibility, not someone else's.
Your happiness, your fulfillment is your responsibility. And you take it to the Lord, not to a person.
Absolutely. And I don't expect anything, and I am grateful.
For everything.
For everything.
I love that, babe.
Sure. So, babe, that is what we were talking about with uncommunicated expectations. Hope
versus expectation.
So it's been a really good show. We've kind of covered some information that we hope blesses and helps someone.
Share some of our heart and some principles and some calls to action and some things to think about.
Absolutely.
Do some heavy lifting. Do some self-examination.
That's what it's all about, where we are growing and getting better.
And changing and serving others.
Yes. So we look forward to the next episode.
Episode 4.
Rich
to be determined.
Rich Relationship Podcast. Gil and Renee Beavers.
We love you all.
Gil and Renee Beavers' over 30-year relationship is the genesis for the Rich Relationship Podcast, which is designed to empower individuals with the tools, principles, and the community needed to unpack ourselves, our past, and our preconceived notions associated with relationships.
Let's get empty and grow together so that our lives will be filled with love and healthy, rich relationships.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for your investment in time. Remember to subscribe to the show and hit the notification icon to be notified when new episodes are posted on the podcast platform that you're listening from.
Or you can always find us on our website at richrelationshipsus.com or our YouTube channel, Rich Relationships with Gil and Renee. If you found this podcast helpful or you think it could help someone that you know and care about, please pass it along and share it with them.
And also, you can always send your questions and comments to richrelationships.us@gmail.com. This is a weekly podcast, and the new episodes are going to be posted on Monday by 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Remember, we're stronger together.
Let's grow.